main speaker today. We have changed a little bit the program. Mr. Brandis, if the weather allows. Lukas Katsonis is the establisher of the Foreign Affairs Institute. He's the president and the head of this very, very interesting initiative, and the main organizer of the summer school. We are very glad to have Lukas with us. He's a distinguished speaker who speaks to a distinguished audience. Thank you very much, Lukas, for joining us. The floor is yours. And,
thank you, Mr. Theodore, for your nice words. Hello to everyone. I thank you so much for being here. Hopefully we will have a fruitful conversation, as were all the previous in this summer school, and the next ones will be, hopefully. So today we will discuss about the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, the UNCLOS. I suppose that all of you know many things about UNCLOS, but nevertheless it won't harm us to repeat some of its features at some point. So first, let's see why the countries felt the need to have such a treaty. In the early days of state organization, the high seas, as generally all the seas, were free for everyone. The state or the people who had navy, ships, or whatever, they could sail, travel, and fish wherever and whenever they want. But as the technology of the weaponry was improving, the states needed some security anew. That is why they introduced the territorial waters to the limit of 3 miles. Beyond that limit, it was forbidden for foreign ships to approach. And why this? Because the ship cannons at that time could not exceed that range of 3 miles. Okay, so the shores will be safe. Of course, as technology advanced and the cannons could reach greater distances, the limit has changed. Okay, after 3 miles we went, if I remember well, to 6 miles, and then to 8, and then the 12 miles that is valid today. Of course, this limit today, the 12 miles maximum, because not every country implements this limit, is a little bit schematic, because we now live in an era of rockets, of high technology weaponry, etc. So the security is not so important today for this limit, but it is for the law. So, of course, again, there are some economic reasons for having some sort of negotiations for the waters, especially the sea waters. Because within the limits where a state has its sovereignty, there are economic resources. Okay. So the beginning was made by the USA back in 1945 by President Truman, who declared a US exclusive economic zone of 200 nautical miles on both oceans, Atlantic and Pacific. And that was in an effort to secure under the seabed energy and mineral resources, and also endangered fishery quantities. Some fishermen were worried that other fishermen from North America will harm the fisheries of the USA, especially Mexicans and from Ισημερινός. Ecuador, yes. So, soon after that, some countries follow it alike. For example, Chile, Peru, and Ecuador, and a few disputes erupted, mainly about fisheries. There was a need for negotiation, and the UN convened the first conference about the law of the sea, which was named UNCLOS I, in 1956, which resulted in 4 treaties. 1 treaty for territorial waters and contiguous zone, 1 for the continental shelf, 1 for the open seas, and 1 for the fisheries. In 1960, UN organized the second convention, but it resulted to nothing due to some peculiar ideas from the US part. In 1967, as you can read even in Wikipedia, which is plenty of details about that, 8 countries had declared the 200 nautical miles limit, 66 had the 12 nautical mile territorial waters limit, and only 25 countries in the world were left with the old 3 miles limit. And then, in 1973, there was the third convention in New York City, which lasted till 1982 and resulted to what it's known today as UNCLOS, a constitution of the oceans, agreed in April 30, 1982 in Montego Bay, Jamaica. It is signed and ratified by 168 parties. It is 167 countries and the EU, but not from USA, Turkey, UK, Germany, and others. Later on, Germany and the UK agreed in an amendment of a clause of UNCLOS, and the treaty was valid by November 1994. UNCLOS has an introduction, 17 parts with 320 articles and 9 annexes in 194 pages. I have a PDF copy if you want it in my memory stick. If you want it, I can share. So, now, there is no doubt that this is a treaty of colossal importance. Okay, it tries and apparently it succeeds to give a peace instrument to the world. It provides numerous forums for discussion and negotiations on various issues concerning waters. The International Seabed Authority, the ISA, the Regional Fisheries Management Organizations, RFMO, and even a court, the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea, the ITLOS. And as a matter of fact, it helped the peaceful resolution on disputes in numerous cases, and some more that are in process of being under investigation. But as is the case with the international law in general, these treaties are optional in their essence. There is no mechanism of enforcing them, and it depends on the goodwill of the countries, along with the pressure from peer nations and the moral impetus from the fact that, for example, 168 parties have signed the UNCLOS for submitting to its clause. In most parts of the world, the mutual understanding that peace facilitates prosperity and that treaties who assure security are building an environment of safety and wealth is working. But, unfortunately, there are some revisionist states in the world, usually under authoritarian governments, who see the world in a win-lose mode, or in other words, as a zero-sum game. As it is probable for me to do, I will mention Turkey. Turkey is not a part of UNCLOS, but it implements its clauses in the Black Sea. This is not the case in the Aegean Sea, let alone in Cyprus. In the case of the Aegean, Turkey is exploiting the vagueness about the term island in UNCLOS, arguing that many of the islets of the Aegean Sea that now are part of the Hellenic territory were not included in the Lausanne Treaty as such. Back in 1923, and later on in the Paris Treaty in 1947, every land that exceeded water was named as island. But now we have the term islet and also rocks as distinctive of small land masses above water. Turkey acknowledged that if everything is considered as island, then at some point it will have territorial waters and also continental shelf. And for that reason, it argues that it didn't concede sovereignty over any islet and rock, a part of these that are named in the Article 15 of the Lausanne Treaty. So, in the Lausanne Treaty, everything was islands, except some islets who were named in the Article 15. And also, I should also mention that Turkey says that the agreement between Turkey and Italy concerning the Dodecanese is not legally binding because it was not ratified by the Turkish parliament and have not been deposited on the Secretariat of the League of Nations as provided by this statute. But that is not an UNCLOS issue, I just mentioned. So, what should a country do in the face of such claims? The apparent answer is to refer to a court. But in our case, in order to refer to the court, there has to be a compromissory note from both countries, in Greek synhyposχετικό, something extremely difficult to be achieved between Greece and Turkey. As the example of these two countries is showing, the grand ideas about law and order are useful until the point that one country sees an opportunity window against the other. In our case, of course, only Turkey can see an opportunity because it is a relatively stronger state than Greece. So, what will we do? Speaking generally, apart from the moral power of the law and the equivalent value of the international courts, each country has the obligation towards its citizens to gather enough power to resist against any threats to its sovereignty. And speaking more precisely, only strong navy, an air force, an army can prevent an enemy attack in the seas. If there aren't any, then no law and no court will save a nation from its perfidious neighbors. So that was all. Thank you for listening. I'm happy and ready for any discussion on these matters if you like.
Thank you very much, Lukas, for your interesting contribution. The floor is open for you to ask questions. Please feel free.
I didn't include many details because it's very easy to find them. So I wanted to tell you about the frame and then the essence of these provisions. These provisions are to facilitate peace, but at the end, only the power game can ensure that no conflict will be underway. If some nation is weak, at some point it will be targeted by its stronger neighbors. And that is I think, the main issue here.
So as long as Turkey is relatively stronger, the conflict will be inevitable between the two countries. I mean, is there no
Yes,
way
I
to...
believe so, yes. So what Greece must do to make itself more powerful, and this is what it's been doing the last five years, I think. We had, because of the economic crisis, etc., and some political issues also, we were in a state of weakness. But now this is reversing, and I think that's why Turkey also changes its tone towards Greece. Now Turkey is more willing to discuss than, let's say, 3 years ago. I think because Greece is stronger now, and also Turkey faces some more problems, economic ones, and after the earthquake, also civilian problems. Okay, so to address these problems, must turn some of its powers internally, and so it is not so powerful externally.
It's like a love-hate story.
There's not much love, I think, in this story.
I mean, we also need each other, for sure.
I don't mean about people, okay, because people, of course, feel love and positive feelings, etc. But when we are talking about states, there aren't feelings, there are only interests. And the interest of each country is to be secure and to expand its not dominance, but its interests. If it comes with dominance, okay, we can discuss that. Let's see the example of Cyprus. That was an expansion of dominance because there were previously interests. Turkey wanted to be present in the island because the island is strategically, geographically, strategically positioned as a aircraft carrier, but a stable one. Okay, so it oversees a vast majority of the area. So if you have a base on Cyprus, then you can overlook this area. That was